So I've got a bit of a surprise for you today. One of the biggest hurdles I've had myself and have seen with tons of other artists is taking good photos of your work. Whether it's to share on social media, your website, publish in digital or print books and magazines, or anywhere else, taking an attractive photo of your physical artwork can be an uphill battle. If you're working with analog tools, you'll need a decent camera, something to stabilize it, good lighting, and time and effort to arrange your scene, and then clean up afterwards. If you work digitally and want to incorporate some decorative elements in a photo with your finished work, you might try printing your art, which involves working with a lab or printing at home and figuring out calibration, color gamut, soft proofing, printer profiles, and so much more. Then you still have to go through all of the challenges that I just mentioned before for the analog stuff. Even if you're like me and have plenty of experience with all of this photo calculus stuff, it's still time consuming and a lot of work. Not to mention you have to repeat this entire process every time you want to take a photo. But what if, whether you're working with good old pen and paper or digital magic, you could just snap a quick photo or use an easy export of your digital art and have an awesome scene to share in just a few minutes. A couple of years ago, I challenged myself with this exact question. And after a ton of experimenting, I actually figured it out. I found a way to make the process of sharing my art way, way easier. And now I'm sharing these tools with you. So let's have some fun. I've actually been using these tools for years now. I was even super honored to be the mockupologist behind the scenes who helped Lauren Hom with her mockup pack. Today, I'm sharing my personal toolkit with you. You can grab the first 2 volumes of my Mockup Magic toolkits right now in my shop using the links down there in the description or by heading to blacklettershop.com. And today I'm going to show you exactly how easy they are to use. I mean, that was the whole point of making them, right? Was to save time, which is why I've been using them for a while. If you can't wait and want to jump right to the tutorial, just follow the timestamp in the description. But first, I just want to give you a little additional background on why I made these. What makes these mockup packs so special is that the page is surrounded and overlapped by different art tools that make it look like a totally natural scene. Other similar mockups I've tried tend to require that you keep the art in the center, and they kind of fall apart where your image overlaps with objects or shadows. So I was super determined to figure out how to make a mockup pack that would work no matter what you threw at it. Now, this isn't a scene creator. I've found with those that it can take forever looking for objects from different files, often realizing you can't find exactly what you're looking for. So you use a decent-ish substitute, pull them into your scene only to realize that the shadows and lighting don't match, especially if you just start rotating the objects. With the mockup pack I created, basically what you see is what you get. Actually, I did make it so you can easily change some of the colors, but we'll get to that in a sec. For now, all you need to know is that all you have to do is just add an image of your artwork, and then you can be ready to go in minutes. So let's have a little show and tell and start with the hardest case, a full-page piece of art. And I know you might be thinking this will be super complicated and require tons of time and complicated techniques to blend the images together, but we can basically do this in 3 simple steps because I've already done all of the complicated stuff for you. So kind of like a cooking show, I've already got a mockup image opened. This is one of the mockups that's included with volume 2, the white pack. And all I'm going to do is open up this change this layer. This is a smart object layer, by double clicking on it like so. And that's going to open my smart object. And you can probably tell that I already have a piece of art in here baked in, but I'm going to show you exactly how to pull in your artwork. I also have another file open, the artwork that I want to import in, this cool robot that I generated with an AI tool. It's a story for another day. All I have to do to pull this artwork into the smart object layer that I just opened is right click on the artwork, select duplicate layer, and then from this pick list here where it says document, I'm going to select the layer conveniently labeled change list. I'm going to select that there and then click OK. And automatically the artwork's been imported into this smart object. You can tell that here because now I have 2 copies of this art in the file. If the artwork opens up a little bit small in the smart object, maybe kind of like this, and it would probably be up here in the top corner. No worries, just transform it. That's Command T, and just resize it to fit the entire canvas like so. And I'm just going to shift it and position it wherever I want it. That's great. Hit enter, and the artwork is now positioned on the screen. Now this incredibly complicated next step is what we have to do to get it into the mockup. And I'm totally kidding. All you have to do at this point is literally save the smart object layer. And this can take a couple of seconds, so just be patient and it'll save within a few seconds or under a minute. And once it's done, just head back over to your original mockup file. And just like that, the image has been overlaid onto the sheet. And as you can tell here, the full page image is loaded onto the mockup. And the shadows, if I go into spots like this here in the corners, the shadows work well, even on this side. Everything blends in really nicely. Now, technically, you could stop right here and we're done. Those 3 simple steps. We opened the files, loaded our art into the smart object layer, save the smart object layer, and now we can stop here, or we can just finish by adding some style to the image, make it a little bit brighter, more contrasty, whatever you prefer. Now, you may be thinking that this doesn't look quite as bold and colorful as some of the preview images, and there's a reason for that. I want you to have the power to make these images as bright, saturated, or muted, black and white, whatever style that you prefer. If I did a lot of heavy processing to the base image, you'd lose a lot of quality when you start to make your edits to stylize the final image how you want it. In case you're not a photo editing expert, I did include a few simple tools in here though to help you along the way. Let's take a quick look at those and then I'll show you some of the other snazzy tools that are in these files. So starting from the top, we have those filters that I was just telling you about. If you toggle this off and on, you can probably already tell that my image got a little brighter and a little bit more saturated. What's awesome though is I've included 27 different filters in this folder that you can apply individually or together to add a variety of looks to the file. You can tell here I've got 4 of them selected. If you want, you can even play with the opacity of the entire filter layer. You can see that I've got it at 30% here, but you could certainly go higher to apply more of the effect or lower to apply less. And you can even play with the opacity of the individual layers so that you can mix and match how they work together. There's almost an infinite number of ways that you could combine these to come up with different looks. If you want to get extra fancy, you could even apply luminosity masks to these layers. Moving on down through the stack, this is the artwork group where the smart object layer is. This levels adjustment layer on top of the smart object layer really just flattens out the image a little bit. You can toggle it off and on depending on how your image fits in already. In this one, it doesn't really make a dramatic difference, but personally, I think I like how it looks on right now. Now we're going to get to some fun stuff. Looking at the image as it is now, I kind of wish this paper behind the image was a different color to kind of accent my foreground image. Several of the mockups include these little accent elements, and I created a handy and easy way that you can change these colors seamlessly. Any of the color change effects will be on a blue layer, and if I click on this little square here, this is the hue saturation adjustment, I should see the properties box appear. Now what I'm looking for is the name of the channel that I need to select, and I've noted that in the layer name. So in this case, I need to select the reds channel. So with this layer selected, I'm going to select the reds channel. And now I have the ability to change the hue, the saturation, and the lightness of just that background paper layer. I actually have already done this, and I picked a color that I think accents the image pretty well. So I'm going to turn on this layer and you're going to see the change. If I wanted to change this color, I can easily do that just by dragging the hue slider around. Now you see I'm going to green, gold, yellow, red again, any number of colors. I can also play with the saturation to make it super saturated and bright. I can pull that down to make it a little bit darker and more muted. And I can play with the lightness, again, to darken or brighten that background color. Once I found a color that I like, I just leave the sliders and we're done. In some of the mockups, there's also a remove fringe layer. That occurred when the color of the paper reflected on some of the object. It wasn't too prominent on this one, but in some of the mockups that was the case. So I actually added a remove fringe layer above that. If you change the color, just toggle that on and it'll remove or significantly reduce the fringe on some of the items in the picture. just as easy as turning it off and on. I also noticed in working with these mockups myself that sometimes these objects in the scene would become too saturated when I applied my own editing to the picture. So what I did is I created a couple of layers that are always in orange that you can use to desaturate some of the objects in the image. For example, this yellow bottle here in the top can tend to get a bit saturated if you boost the color up later. So with this layer selected, that color will be a little bit more muted. If I turn this layer off, you'll see that the yellow at the top here gets a bit brighter. Turning it back on, the ink bottle becomes more desaturated. And that's really it. As you can see, the easiest part of this process was pulling in the image and adding it to the mockup. That took no time at all. Now you can work with this final image in any way that you want. I've left plenty of room around the edges, again, to crop this image for social media or for print, to add watermarks. If you're going to use them on social media, there's plenty of room at the top and bottom to accommodate for UI elements in those apps. I really tried to come up with the most flexible but still really easy tool possible. Now, I used a mockup from the white paper Mockup Magic Pack. That's volume 2 if you're counting. But the same process applies for the black paper mockups. I'm going to move to one of those that I've already got open here, and you can see it's set up in exactly the same way. This one includes that remove fringe layer that I told you about before. But again, just double click on the smart object layer that's labeled change this, add your art to that smart object layer, save it, and you'll be right back here with a mockup that's ready to edit however you want. Just like before, this mockup also includes an element that you can change colors. You may not have realized, but the background was actually originally red. I just changed it to green. Again, same process, looked for the reds channel. In other mockups, that might be a different color. So just click on the adjustment layer, find the reds channel, and then change these sliders however you want. One other quick tip that I just remembered in working with these, I've noticed occasionally that when I import my art images into the smart object layer, all of a sudden the images become insanely oversaturated. So I dug around and figured out how to fix that. If the image that you're working with becomes insanely oversaturated when you pull it into the smart object, here's how to fix it. All you have to do is from the edit menu, select assign profile. When you click on this the first time, you may get another dialog that you have to click OK through. I've told Photoshop not to show me that additional dialog anymore, so I'm going to end up straight here in the assign profile menu. And within this, all you need to do is to select a color space that better fits your image. You can select different options from within here and see how they impact your image if you have the preview box selected. sRGB can be a good option if you're going to use your image online, but select the color space that fits your picture and works with the end use that you're planning for, whether that's online or print or whatever that happens to be. You can even pull these native Photoshop files directly into a program like Lightroom and work with them there. I'll show you a quick peek at all the fun that you can have there. As you can tell, I've already got a bunch of these files loaded into Lightroom, but just to show you how flexible these can be when working with a tool like this, I'm starting with just the base version of the image that we were just working with. With just a couple of clicks, I can create a virtual copy of this image, open it in the develop module, and pick any one of any number of these presets that I think would work with this image. I've used this one before, so I know it works pretty well. So I can select that as a base adjustment, and then I can very quickly tweak or adjust any of the individual settings on the right here. And what's even more fun is then I can create another virtual copy of this image, apply a different filter, or do any number of things. I can even duplicate adjustments between two images to make things really quick. For example, I've already got this version of the image that I've cropped and applied a few other adjustments to, and I can really quickly synchronize both of these by selecting both of them, clicking sync settings, and synchronize, and just like that, all of the adjustments are synchronized between these two photos. I can tell you all about Lightroom another time, but I just wanted to show that to you just so that you could see how fun and flexible these are to work with. In the meantime, I hope you find these tools just as valuable as I have over the past few years. Again, they're available right now in my shop at blacklettershop.com. Just look for the 2 new Mockup Magic products. It should be front and center on the main page. And as always, if you want a bunch of other free resources, including some Lightroom presets, join my newsletter community at blackletterfreebies.com. Thanks for studying some mockupology with me, and have a fantastic day. See you next time. I was even super honored to be the mockupologist. That's a brand new word. I can't even say this without cracking myself up. Oh,